The throne of England has never been just a seat. It has been a crucible of ambition, betrayal, and blood. Across centuries, royal families have fought in shadows and in battlefields, where the line between loyalty and treachery was kings and queens were not merely rulers. They were players in a deadly game of survival where a single misstep could mean exile, imprisonment, or death. From secret assassinations to wars over succession, the story of Britain's monarchy is written in blood, ambition, and relentless power struggles. This is the hidden history of a royal family that refused to fall, no matter the threat. Watch to the end. Like and subscribe to uncover every secret, every betrayal, and every moment that shaped the crown. Early succession wars. The danger of succession began almost immediately after the Norman conquest of 1066. When William the Conqueror secured the throne, he ignited centuries of disputes over legitimate inheritance. Kingship was rarely peaceful. Rival claimants, ambitious nobles, and foreign powers constantly tested the line of succession. The Anarchy 1135-1154 exemplified this chaos. Following the death of King Henry I, his daughter Empress Matilda and cousin Stephen of Blois waged civil war. Castles burned, armies clashed, and the nobility switched alliances like wind, creating a nation perpetually on the brink. These conflicts were not mere political struggles, they were battles for life, legacy, and the very survival of the monarchy. During this era, royal courts became centers of intrigue, espionage, and secret plotting. Nobles often betrayed kings to protect personal ambitions, and alliances shifted overnight. The lessons learned from these early succession wars set the stage for the ruthless strategies that would dominate British royal politics for centuries. The monarchy, though tested, endured, learning early that survival required cunning, adaptability, and sometimes brutal decisiveness. The medieval succession wars taught the monarchy that loyalty was a fragile commodity. By the 16th century, betrayal had become a refined art. Few reigns exemplify this as vividly as Henry VIII's court. Power, ambition, and fear collided in corridors of palaces, creating a volatile world where the smallest misstep could end in the Tower of London or worse. Henry VIII ascended the throne in 1509, a young and charismatic king, adored by his people but fiercely ambitious. He sought a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty, and this obsession would shape his court and personal life. Marriages were strategic, alliances fragile, and court intrigues constant. Advisors rose and fell with astonishing speed, and the king's favor was the most coveted and dangerous prize of all. Internal betrayals became a daily reality. Courtiers conspired to gain influence. Rivals plotted assassinations, and even family members sometimes turned against one another for survival. Cardinal Wolsey, Thomas Cromwell, and Anne Boleyn were pivotal figures in these high-stakes games. Anne's rise and fall demonstrated the lethal combination of charm, ambition, and royal whim, illustrating how betrayal could come from the closest quarters. Henry's court also mirrored the transformation of monarchy from feudal authority to a centralized state. The king's word became law, but power was never absolute. Behind every ceremonial procession and feast lay plots, conspiracies, and the constant threat of treason. By the end of Henry VIII's reign, England had witnessed the most dramatic shifts in royal power in centuries. Religious upheaval, courtly betrayals, and the establishment of a centralized authority that would define the monarchy's future. Survival depended not just on lineage but on cunning, ruthlessness, and mastery of intrigue. The Tudor dynasty's intrigue reached its most dramatic heights in the rivalry between Mary I and Elizabeth I, two queens whose fates were intertwined by blood, religion, and ambition. This conflict was not merely political, it was personal, ideological, and capable of reshaping the course of English history. Mary, the daughter of Henry VIII, and Catherine of Aragon, ascended the throne in 1553, determined to restore Catholicism in England. Her reign was marked by fervent religious reforms, but also by suspicion and paranoia. Elizabeth, her half-sister and daughter of Anne Boleyn, represented a Protestant alternative and a symbol of hope for those opposed to Mary's Catholic policies. Their very existence created a dangerous duality. The throne could belong to only one, and each had supporters ready to act on their behalf. Plots, conspiracies, and betrayals defined the era. The Ridolfi, Throckmorton, and Babington plots all sought to replace Elizabeth with Mary, or vice versa. Secret codes, intercepted letters, and underground networks of Catholic and Protestant supporters made the monarchy a chessboard of deadly maneuvering. Elizabeth herself became a master of political strategy, balancing charm and cunning to survive assassination attempts, espionage, and the constant threat of rebellion. Despite their rivalry, both queens understood the precariousness of their position. Mary's eventual imprisonment and execution in 1587 underscored the lethal stakes of succession and the monarchy's survival. Elizabeth's reign, meanwhile, would usher in a golden age of political stability, cultural flourishing, and the consolidation of the monarchy's power, proof that resilience, intelligence, and political acumen could secure not only survival but greatness. This period cemented a defining lesson for the monarchy. Blood alone could not guarantee power. Strategic mastery, alliances, and calculated decisiveness were essential. The crown demanded not just heritage, but skill, courage, and the ability to outmaneuver enemies, both within and outside the royal household. Following the Tudor era, the British monarchy entered a period of complex political turbulence with the Stuart dynasty. The transition from Elizabeth I to James I, the first Stuart King of England, brought new tensions that would test the very survival of the monarchy. For the first time in centuries, questions of divine right, parliamentary power, and religious allegiance collided on a grand scale. James I inherited a crown already burdened with ideological divisions. Catholics, Puritans, and Anglicans jostled for influence, and the king's insistence on the divine right of kings clashed with an increasingly assertive parliament. Throughout his reign, and that of his successors, England saw plots, conspiracies, and political maneuvering that threatened to destabilize the monarchy entirely. The infamous gunpowder plot of 1605 revealed the lethal stakes. As Catholic extremists attempted to assassinate James and obliterate Parliament, the tension escalated during the reign of Charles I, whose authoritarian tendencies and conflicts with Parliament triggered the English Civil War 1642 to 1651. Royalist and parliamentarian forces clashed across England, leaving devastation in their wake. Charles's eventual execution in 1649 marked the first time a reigning English monarch was publicly tried and executed, shaking the foundations of monarchy across Europe. Amidst these crises, the monarchy's survival seemed impossible. Yet, the lessons of adaptability and strategic compromise allowed it to endure. The restoration of Charles II in 1660 symbolized the resilience of the crown, though it came with concessions, including clearer limits on royal power and stronger parliamentary oversight. The Stuart-Hanover tensions demonstrated a critical truth. Survival required not just courage on the battlefield, but shrewd diplomacy, political alliances, and a willingness to navigate ideological fault lines. The monarchy's survival through civil war, regicide, and succession disputes highlighted its ability to evolve, balancing tradition with the demands of a changing political landscape. The turbulent Stuart era eventually gave way to the Hanoverian dynasty, beginning with George I in 1714. The monarchy had survived regicide, civil war, and religious turmoil, but maintaining authority in a rapidly changing political landscape required adaptation, diplomacy, and skillful intrigue. The early Hanoverians, largely foreign-born and unfamiliar with England's customs, relied heavily on ministers and advisors. Robert Walpole, often considered the first prime minister, exemplified the growing importance of parliamentary collaboration. Monarchs could no longer govern purely by divine right. Instead, they had to navigate a complex web of political factions, public opinion, and international pressures. This shift allowed the monarchy to maintain relevance while avoiding direct conflict with increasingly powerful parliamentary forces. Court life remained a theater of power and subtle manipulation. Advisors, courtiers, and family members jostled for influence, often secretly shaping policy and guiding the monarch's decisions. Royal marriages became tools of diplomacy, cementing alliances and expanding influence across Europe. The Hanoverians also faced periodic threats from Jacobite uprisings, most famously culminating in the Battle of Culloden. 1746, which marked the end of serious attempts to restore the Stuart line. Despite these threats, the monarchy under the Hanoverians strengthened its symbolic authority while embracing constitutional limitations. Political intrigue was no longer fought solely on battlefields. Instead, it thrived in courtly negotiations, parliamentary maneuvering, and public relations. Monarchs became masters of soft power, leveraging prestige, ceremonial influence, and subtle guidance to shape England's destiny. This period underscored a critical lesson in royal survival. Power could no longer rely solely on force or fear. It required strategy, patience, and the ability to adapt to evolving political and social structures. The monarchy's endurance depended on the delicate balance between visible authority and behind-the-scenes influence. By the 19th and 20th centuries, the British monarchy had evolved from medieval rulers to modern constitutional figures. The Victorian era marked a period of unprecedented expansion and consolidation, where royal authority was symbolic yet influential. Queen Victoria's reign, 1837 to 1901, not only strengthened the monarchy domestically but also projected British power globally through diplomacy, marriage alliances, and imperial presence. The monarchy became an emblem of continuity during political upheavals. The rise of parliamentary democracy, industrialization, and social reform required monarchs to carefully balance ceremonial duties with behind-the-scenes guidance. Kings and queens used their prestige to influence ministers, navigate international crises, and maintain public support, even as real political power shifted to elected officials. The 20th century introduced new challenges: world wars, declining colonial influence, and the rise of media scrutiny. Monarchs such as George V, Edward VIII, and George VI faced intense public and political pressures, requiring both resilience and adaptability. The monarchy's survival depended on strategic marriages, symbolic histories, and careful navigation of political alliances, ensuring relevance in a rapidly modernizing society. This era also demonstrated the monarchy's role in shaping public sentiment. Royal appearances, speeches, and charitable work fostered national unity and strengthened loyalty, proving that power could be exercised not only through laws and armies, but also through symbolism, tradition, and cultural influence. Through wars, social change, and global upheaval, the monarchy survived because it learned to adapt to modern governance, embrace ceremonial authority, and maintain influence behind the scenes. The crown endured not by resisting change but by skillfully integrating tradition with evolving societal expectations. The story of the British monarchy is not merely a tale of kings, queens, and battles. It is the chronicle of a family that learned to endure, adapt, and evolve over a millennium. From Viking invasions to Norman conquest, from Tudor intrigues to Stuarts civil wars, and from Hanoverian diplomacy to modern constitutional monarchy, the crown has survived because it mastered the art of strategic resilience. The monarchy's survival depended on more than force or lineage. It thrived on political acumen, careful alliances, and the ability to navigate betrayal and conflict. Kings and queens learned when to wield absolute power and when to defer to parliament. They balanced personal ambition with public duty, understanding that legitimacy stemmed as much from public support as from royal blood. Figures like Henry VIII demonstrated the lethal potential of ambition, reshaping religious and political structures to secure the throne. Elizabeth showcased strategic brilliance, surviving assassination attempts, international plots, and religious unrest to usher in a golden era of culture and stability. The Stuart and Hanoverian monarchs adapted to evolving political realities, surviving civil wars, parliamentary challenges, and foreign threats. By mastering diplomacy and leveraging symbolic authority, modern monarchs have further refined this approach. Queen Victoria transformed the monarchy into a symbol of unity and moral authority during global expansion, while the 20th and 21st century royals have balanced tradition with public visibility, media scrutiny, and ceremonial leadership. Their legacy proves that survival requires a blend of ceremony, diplomacy, public engagement, and political strategy. The British monarchy's endurance illustrates a broader truth. Power is not static. It requires continuous adaptation, cunning, and the foresight to navigate both internal and external pressures. Each century brought new challenges: war, rebellion, political transformation, and societal change, but the crown persisted because it learned from history, embraced evolution without sacrificing its heritage, and balanced authority with influence. Today, the monarchy remains a symbol of continuity, legitimacy, and national identity. Its survival across 1,000 years of turbulence, betrayal, and warfare offers lessons in resilience, strategy, and the enduring human desire for stability and tradition. In the end, the story of the British royal family is a story of endurance. It is a testament to the power of adaptation, intelligence, and unbroken legacy, reminding the world that the crown is not merely inherited, is earned, defended, and carefully nurtured across generations.